Now, hear me out. Before spreadsheets, before markets, before the word consumer made us forget that we're human, there was this. There were two people face to face. One has grain, one has cloth. And between them, a negotiation. Yes. But more than that, it was a recognition. I see you. I see what you've made. I see what you're growing, what you've carried here to this marketplace. And you see me. And we're trying to survive the same winter. Hello, my name is Connie Davis, your host of Unlocking Commerce and Business and founder of Maiden Explorations. This podcast is for people ready to explore what is blocking humans from true commerce and exchanging their value in the world around them. The name of today's episode is Drawing a Line, a lighthouse for sovereign creators. Just in case you're joining us for the first time, this podcast is a marketplace of voices. For the past few episodes, I've been amplifying other people's journeys. We launched our podcast cohort with 3 new shows that are beginning voices starting to communicate out to the big world. And sovereign creators, though, who have crossed the bridge from extraction to communion, from invisible to sovereign, from drowning to building. Today, you are going to hear a little bit more about my story, my why. Not because it's more important than those other shows, but because I wanted my audience to understand why this podcast exists and what it is. So I'm going to ask you to immerse with me for a few minutes. I want you to close your eyes for just a few seconds and listen to my voice. I'm standing on a beach. I'm drawing a line in the sand, not to keep anybody out, but to mark where the water brought me back. You see, 5 years ago, I went searching. I didn't know for what. I just knew the noise that was on shore had become so unbearable. All the shouting about money, about success, running from meetings to meetings, about matters and what doesn't matter and what matters. There was so much noise. I just wanted to pull my hair out. It all felt like the only thing that mattered in the world was profit margins, performance, quarterly results. The light of my own spirit was dimming. I felt it, and I had to do something about it. So I went under. I dove deep beneath the merchant ships, sailing in artificial light, down where the most vulnerable of creatures and human beings, metaphorically with soft shells, live, waiting, weathering storms roaring above them just because they're so low on the economic totem pole. You see, navigating tide changes as the gods of earth, the big bankers, the big companies thrash about demanding order at the government level, the federal level, the state level, the community level, the control, and then often stepping on little small creatures like us beneath their godly feet. It was there that I found something. The signal screaming out in the dark, not treasure, but truth. Thank you for immersing now. So you can open your eyes or you can keep them closed. The choice is up to you. But hear me. As a collective society, we are drowning in noise again and right now. Voices that are selling and shouting, extracting. We're creating more content now than we ever have before, thanks to AI. But is it meaningful content? Is it fueling commerce? Or is it just checking a box, hoping that the algorithms on these Web2 social media platforms scour what the files are and deem us worthy enough to determine who gets seen and who gets heard versus who doesn't, and who ultimately gets valued? That word value is really standing up and tall in my thought processes these days. And underneath it all, with all of that shouting, a mental health crisis is raging. There's a surge in violence. Trauma and abuse have continued to go up in numbers across all of the different communities, all of the different genders, and all of the different cultures. Human rights violations so casually that we are now scrolling past them as cyberbullying continues. and grooming continues online. These are not separate problems, people. They are intertwined. They are symptoms of the same distortion. That is, commerce without consent, value extracted from us without full disclosure, exchange that isn't exchange at all. It's extraction of value without consent. And our bodies feel it. Our bodies are stressed. Our minds are weathered, overloaded, and blinking tilt, tilt. We're literally stewing in anxiety that won't name itself. Many of us are unable to pause, dealing with exhaustion and burnout. We are stewing in the loneliness of being seen as a performing and producing demographic instead of a human being and a creator. Something out there is broken. We all feel it. It's not us, it's in the systems deep down that we've been told are normal. We're weathered, battered by the storms of business and chasing profit. The tides of life are changing, and a new generation of commerce is about to be born in the storm. I talk about this commerce, changing tides all the time. Now, hear me out. Before spreadsheets, before markets, before the word consumer made us forget that we're human, there was this. There were two people face to face. One has grain, one has cloth. And between them, a negotiation. Yes. But more than that, it was a recognition. I see you. I see what you've made. I see what you're growing, what you've carried here to this marketplace. And you see me. And we're trying to survive the same winter. Back then, value wasn't abstract. It was the weight of grain in your hand. It was the food or the warmth of cloth your neighbor wove while her children swept. And trust was looking someone in the eye. It was knowing that if this trade isn't fair, I'm going to see you tomorrow at the well in the marketplace. Our children will play together. We're bound. And the original form of commerce began as communion. So think about that. Here's something most people don't know. Before fiat money, before metal coins, thousands of years ago, the first marketplaces were powered by women. Women were the original merchants, the traders, the value creators. It wasn't until soldiers came with war, with mobile metal money in their pockets, that human trading posts shifted. Kings and monarchies decided what was valuable. And suddenly, women's labor, care, food, work, preparation of food and meals, textile creation, it all became invisible. We've been making women's labor actually invisible for a millennia. And today, women make up 50% of the planet's population. We are the unsung powerhouses of households and communities. We nurture, we connect, we expand, and grow everything around us. And we've been doing it for free or undervalued for thousands of years. Now, let me tell you when I first stopped seeing faces. My father was a welder. He fused metal to metal with his hands. He built structures from steel with the kind of craftsmanship that doesn't exist anymore. Permanent installations are all over California. He left his legacy in naval shipyards, his legacy standing the test of time in gates and metal fencing to communities and buildings. He was paid by the hour. My mother, she was a powerhouse that nobody saw. A stay at home mom, an adult child of alcoholics, carrying trauma that she never had the language to name either. But she loved my little sister and I with everything that she had. And some days were rockier than others. She did what she could with what she had. That was her form of commerce. At 44, her heart exploded in her chest, and the doctors called it a medical event. I call it what happens when you give everything you've got for years without anyone seeing the cost to your physical self. So that's when I started wandering. Lost in grief, I was 19. At 20, I became a mom myself, already recreating the same pattern as she did, pouring out, holding together, believing love was enough to cover the extraction. I didn't know yet that I was living inside this distorted commerce world. the kind that actually makes some labor visible and valued, and other labor, the care, the resilience, the holding it together, completely invisible. I married up into a more resourced family, but once again found myself in the company of recovering alcoholics, a wound or a mirror of commerce that emotionally rippled into my inner world. I may have lost my authentic self raising children and working inside a huge matrix organization for 2 decades, but I created amazing human beings who are already resisting the level of extraction that their parents knew but couldn't name. By my early 30s, I was climbing, full time career, woman, mother of three. I joined a product team building software for financial institutions, helping them move money faster, smoother, and visibly. We built loyalty programs, we facilitated transactions over airwaves and plumbing and railways that small business owners like you paid for with every sale. I was good at it. I told myself I was helping, making things convenient, efficient, unlocking commerce, so I thought. But what was I really doing? I was making money disappear. I was helping extract micro fees from every transaction, from the baker, the mechanic, the woman running a shop on Main Street, people doing the heavy lifting of actual commerce. They were the powerhouses building actual community. And we, the networks, the processors, the platforms, we all took our cut. I didn't see their faces. I saw the data, conversion rates, user engagement. I stopped seeing the cost because I stopped seeing the people. I grew up in a small world, a veteran father, a mother carrying trauma she never named, a tiny home built on meager resources and stubborn love. At 18, I looked at that life and I thought, I have to get out. I have to give my children more. A bigger world, better opportunities. Don't we all? Proof that we could transcend. So I climbed and I built and I provided. I consumed every day just like they wanted me to. Back then, I didn't know what commerce truly meant. And the whole time, I was running from the very thing that could have saved me: the smallness, the visibility, the face to face knowing that my parents' generation understood, still truly understood what true commerce was. It didn't have a name, though. And for 23 years, corporate empire convinced me that being small was a failure, that invisible money was sophisticated, cool, and scalable. Underneath the enterprise, extraction at scale was just how business works. And I believed it until I couldn't anymore. You see, my husband had a major stroke in 2016, and then he was gone. 4 years before COVID nearly took me, death took him. Suddenly, completely, commerce in my home between my husband and I came to a screeching halt. I was left with 3 kids and a choice: collapse or continue. I continued because that's what mothers do. That's what my mother did until her heart couldn't anymore. And I kept climbing that corporate ladder. I kept performing. I kept the data going, the performance metrics, the quarterly statistics, and the deadlines. I kept the armor tight, kept contributing to systems that were making money and the flow of it absolutely invisible. But something was different. I had seen behind the curtain. I knew now viscerally that you can disappear, that the people that you love to exchange value with can vanish in an instant, that all the systems, all the success, all the climbing means nothing when death walks through your front door, uninvited. I didn't know what to do with that knowledge yet, so I buried it like I buried him. And I kept going. But then, by then, digital money and digital bank accounts were deeply embedded into our phones, our wallets, and our daily lives. Remember, this was 2016, not that long ago. Paper checks and paper ledgers were fast becoming a thing of the past. We were no longer touching real, tangible money. And we were thinking about how fast it came out of our accounts, much less. Yet the expenditure of time, effort, and emotions continued. And I realized I'd been perfecting invisibility, making extraction frictionless. Everything hit me in 2018 when I realized I was done climbing, done building systems that extracted. I was bound for something else, work that restored instead of extracted. I started studying nonprofits and charities and how they moved money. It felt like the final frontier. After 2 years of studying the systems that move food stamps and government benefits and SNAP payment cards, I was fired, wrapped up in something that I played no character for, because I was simply standing on the stage with other less honest characters. An employee I'd trusted, someone drowning in his own battles, fighting for custody of his children, battling sobriety, walking between light and dark, he went rogue. He extracted value from the company I worked for. And when it was discovered, I was the one held responsible because I'd trusted him, because it had happened on my watch. Because in enterprise systems, someone has to be the body that gets sacrificed when extraction is exposed. And that was me. After 23 years of excellent employee reviews, I was gone in a day. My professional network knew I was there one day and gone the next. Only a few asked even what had happened and really listened to the answers that I gave them. The rest believed what they heard. Because that's how institutional power works. It controls the narrative, and individuals can't compete with that. And I was named. Commerce for me in that old world had been blocked and barricaded, and the key thrown out to sea. I had to rebuild. I had no other choice. I was terrified. Don't get me wrong. My personality as a corporate career executive erased with only words left on a resume. I had kids depending on me, a household to run, bills that didn't care that my husband had died and what I was going through. I needed work. So I found another position. Same circle, same systems. And they cast me again out as well after 6 months. No explanation this time other than I was distracted and unfocused. More excuses. Because once you're marked, you see, the circle closes. The network talks. The stain spreads. That second casting out, that's what I knew. That's when I knew. The answers I was looking for were not going to be in boardrooms. They weren't in cubicles and they weren't inside the institutions that had just made it clear you don't belong. The way you exchange value is not aligned with the model that we exchange value in. So, if I wanted to understand what I'd been complicit in building, really understand it, if I wanted to find a different way, I had to leave the shore entirely. Not as choice born of privilege, as a choice born of choosing to find the signal in all of the noise, to heal the distortion that I felt in my own rhythm of commerce and trade. I had to dive into the depths. I had to swim with the prey instead of the predators. I had to find the people who'd been extracted from, cast out, made invisible, because now I was one of them. I used my administrative leave and self pity party to dive deep. It was the survivor and the pastor at a birthday party who spoke up and shared a story that touched my heart forever, one of human exploration. Actually, it was human exploitation, and it activated my heart. But from that moment, I started consuming everything I could find on nonprofits and vulnerable communities because I couldn't fathom how things could be worse than what I had already been through. But it could, and it was much worse. I had found it, though. Extraction at its most purest, most evil form. Human beings reduced to commodities, supply chains built on stolen sovereignty, demand created by systems that taught people other humans could actually be used and cast out because they had no means to exchange their value or sing their song. It was commerce at its most distorted, disgusting flavor, and it was everywhere. Not just in trafficking, but woven through every system that treated humans as resources instead of real people. You see, after being cast out twice, I made a choice. I could keep trying to get back in, keep scraping for positions and systems and resume builders and job posting boards that had made it clear I didn't really belong. Or I could build my own ground. I started my own consulting firm, and suddenly I was living the entrepreneur struggle firsthand. The cash flow uncertainty, the feast or famine of contracts, the weight of being solely responsible for feeding your family with no corporate safety net. I showed up with all of my enterprise wisdom, decades of corporate strategy, systems thinking, process automation, and optimization. And you know what I learned? It was too much. Small business owners didn't need my complex enterprise frameworks. They needed simplicity. They didn't need another consultant talking at them. They needed to be heard, to connect, to belong, and to build community. They needed to be visible. They didn't need sophisticated financial instruments. They needed to learn how to flow money through their business without drowning and to understand why there were so many damn layers of permission just to move their own money around. I was equipped with corporate armor, but small business requires vulnerability, and I was finally ready for that. Then I took a contract that changed everything. A cryptocurrency startup. Crypto. Crypto. I knew exactly what my professional colleagues would think, what they would call it: the enemy, the threat, the Wild West chaos undermining everything stable and regulated. And me, by stepping into that world, I became the traitor. That's exactly what happened. The few professional relationships that I had left were gone because I'd crossed a line. But here's what I saw, what they couldn't. Crypto wasn't the enemy. Centralized extraction was the enemy, and they knew it. And crypto, for all its volatility, its scams, its chaos, was showing me something the banking system never did. What happens when you remove the intermediaries? What happens when the rails are visible and the fees are transparent and the power is distributed? What happens when sovereignty becomes technically possible? Not just philosophically possible and aspirational, but real. My job at the crypto startup was what I'd always done. It was to define the lanes of traffic and build the bridge, define the MVP, minimum viable product, create the go to market strategy, make it accessible. We were simplifying the buy and sell of Bitcoin and Ethereum for retail banking customers like you. Education fused with centers of trust. Demystifying crypto, and we were giving communities choice of cryptocurrencies and choice of liquidity providers instead of a centralized exchange. And here's what made it different for me: I was inviting traditional institutions to come and play in the sandbox. So, that invitation is to explore this reimagined world of money movement without having to blow up everything that they've already built, without a threat, with collaboration and the spirit of collaboration and working together to solve really deep systems issues. I was building the bridge both ways because sovereign creators don't burn the world down and walk away. We build options, we create on ramps, and we make it possible for people like you and institutions to choose differently. So I knew the moment that was coming because I had already been through two technical evolutions before. Now I'm not going to divulge my age, but the age of the plastic payment card, I was there, building the infrastructure, watching money become plastic, portable, and trackable, watching fees become systematized, interchange, processing the invisible cuts that merchants barely understood but had to pay. I helped build that. The age of the mobile payment device, tap to pay. I was there too, making money even more invisible, instant, frictionless, making extraction so smooth, so seamless that people really stopped feeling it. Just tap and go, while the fees compound in the background. In 2014, I realized I had almost helped to perfect invisibility. And that's when something really started to stir in me. So the age of crypto really started for me in 2021. That was when I really dove deep into decentralized finance. And we're going to talk about that a lot in this podcast. The third evolution. another fundamental shift in how humans move money. But this time, I wasn't building an on ramp back to the extraction system. I was building an on ramp away from it to empower choices. Choices to a safe cove where there was a shelter against inflation and a map to protect one's purchasing power. For 30 years, I had already been making centralized extraction more efficiently without even knowing. First with plastic, making plastic cards the default and cash the exception. Then with mobile, making invisibility the norm, paper ledgers became obsolete. Each evolution, you see, increased the system's power. It made extraction faster, smoother, harder to see, harder to escape. But crypto and blockchain, they were different. It wasn't about making the system more efficient in the existing world. It was about making the existing system optional to give us choice. It became a movement for me to empower people with choice to build assets rather than liabilities. It was about building rails where intermediaries weren't required, they were optional because we had choice. Where fees were visible, we had transparency. We had immutable records where sovereignty was technically possible. And where, for once, someone didn't need another person's permission to belong or to move their own money on their own timeline and terms. Was it messy? Back then, yes. Chaotic? Absolutely. Full of scams and volatility and people who didn't understand what they were building or how to truly navigate what had already been developed? Of course. But it was also the first technology that I'd ever worked on that didn't make extraction more powerful. It made extraction optional. That was cool. And it changed everything in my world. So, 5 years after losing my husband, the height of fear, I walked into the hospital with gray lips, oxygen starved, and all I could think of was not again. My children couldn't lose another parent. So, as much as I was working, the universe still had one more frontier for me. I'd already left them fatherless and with their dad. I couldn't and would not leave them motherless too. This is important because this really fuses the emotional response that I have with commerce. Because in that hospital room, when I was fighting for every single breath, I had two companions. I had Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now book, teaching me to stay present in the battle, to exchange my value of commerce with the staff on that hospital floor, and not drown in fear of what might actually happen, to be here in the now and to breathe this breath, to exchange the next one, then the next. And then I watched a movie, The Never-Ending Story. I was Atreyu battling the nothing, that creeping void that consumes all of us, everything, makes everything meaningless if we allow it, and turns the world to dust and away and takes us away from our blessings. So Atreyu defeats the nothing by naming, by giving the childlike empress in the movie a new name, by declaring this world matters. This world is worth saving, and this world is real. We all have imagination, and we all hold value against the nothing. And I realized, wow, what if I had an Atreyu moment as well inside of me? So the nothing in that movie was fear. COVID was fear for many of us. It left us terrorized. The fear that had been eating at me since 2016 compounded. And it was fear that after I was let go from a company that I spent over 2 decades working for, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong, that my value was worthless, that my small life wasn't worth fighting for, and that I was just another body in the system that everybody processed after the experience and forgot. The nothing was extraction, the force that makes humans invisible, that makes labor and love and life meaningless unless it serves the empire. And if I was going to survive and if I was going to get home to my kids, to my grandchild, I had to name what mattered. I had to claim it. I had to call it forth to realize my value and my worth. That is what this podcast is about. We have to fight the nothing by declaring that this boring, small, unremarkable life is actually okay. It's everything, and we can't let it go. So, in that hospital, I experienced both complacency and compassion. Some humans saw me as another body, another number, a COVID case number, another statistic. They were efficient, they were professional, but I was invisible to them. That's extraction. Even in healthcare, when humans become units to process. But then there were others, the ones who saw me, humans who leaned in close and said, "You have to fight. You have to get boring again." Boring? Not fight for your life in some heroic way? Just get boring? Get home? Get back to ordinary? Unremarkable? Beautiful? Mundane life waiting for me? Yes, that's exactly what I was fighting for. Not glory, not drama, but the gift of being boring, being a grandma who shows up, a mother who answers the phone, and a woman who gets to grow old doing unremarkable things with the people that she loves. And the superhumans, because there's plenty of them, who surround me with their full hearts and entrepreneurial spirit. That was my roar. I will survive this. I will get home. I will become boring again. And if something else happened in that hospital room, something I didn't expect, I had just completed a trip. I was coming home as a certified love and authenticity practitioner. What the heck is that? I had studied in Colorado with Mandy Moore and Oliver Nino. And right before COVID hit, I had gone on a retreat to finish my certification. That is where emotional awareness started for me. Because as I was lying there reflecting on my certification experience and the next steps that laid ahead, fighting for breath, I realized I had been literally gifted tools right before I needed them most. Tools to stay present and stand in my authenticity, to love myself through terror and fear, to be authentic while even I was growing as an entrepreneur. That certification wasn't coincidence, it was preparation. And when I walked out of that hospital, when I realized that I'm here to teach people how to be human again and to stand up against the extraction and remember their value, not how to perform, not how to disappear into systems, but how to be fully human, fully alive. So, as I named and called it forth myself, I defeated the nothing for me. I became a sovereign creator in that hospital room because I never again would have my hand in systems to power those systems up that extract without your consent as a consumer. Because I wasn't here to consume anymore, to process, or to be a body in someone else's machine. I was here to build, and not just anything. I was here to rebuild from the ashes of a crumbling money movement system, the very system I had helped perfect a decade ago. And I wasn't afraid of the ashes. I survived my husband's death and my mother's death before that, and I'd nearly died myself. So what was left to fear? I walked out of that hospital knowing a week later, I'm not rebuilding the old system. I'm building something new from what was remaining in the old. I wasn't going to tear it down. I was going to build a bridge, and I wasn't building alone. Later that year, I discovered temperament, or it discovered me. Either way, it was divine intervention and it was God's reminding me that no one teaches us how to be human. No one shows us the map to our authentic selves. So no wonder we get lost exploring a world of extraction and forget that we are creators ourselves. Again, I dove deep. I personally studied with Dr. John Worley, became certified in WIDP, the Worley ID profile. And today I'm one of about 20 people in the world teaching this framework, teaching people how to be human. Temperament isn't personality, it's your innate emotional design. Who you are before the world buries you in the matrix and makes you forget who you were designed to be before the performance starts. And I learned that I feel deeply, I process internally, but I'm emotionally wired to connect and uplift others. For 30 years, I had contorted that design to conform to corporate molds. Extroverted when I needed to recharge, forced to be surface level when I needed depth, and performing when I needed to feel. Temperament showed me I had been at war with my own design. And you see, that's why intelligence, emotional intelligence, matters in the era of technology and money. And once I saw that, once I understood my unique value and rhythm, I couldn't unsee it, not just in myself, but in everyone. Every person drowning in extraction, they're at war with their design and the matrix system that demands costumes and masks on stage. Every system making humans invisible, it's stripping away our natural, authentic intelligence and emotional rhythms that sing our songs. So let me be clear, I'm all in on crypto and blockchain and commerce and emotional awareness. It's all connected. Not because I think it's perfect, not because I ignore its problems, the scams and the volatility, the learning curve that humans have, but because I see it for what it is, the next evolution of money, movement, and data. And after 30 years of building the previous evolutions, plastic cards, mobile payments, I understand what this one possibility of technology means. It means sovereignty. It means real, technical, achievable sovereignty and trust. And where trust goes, money flows. We know that. That's why I took the contract that day back in 2021. Not for the paycheck, not for the career comeback, because I finally saw technology that aligned with the truth I had been learning in the deep water. We are the sources and stores of value, not banks, not payment processors, not exchanged and centralized systems. Us, humans, sovereign creators. And crypto, for all its chaos, is the first money movement system that makes this truth technically operational. People ask me, why was crypto created? What problem does it solve? And I tell them it's not as much cryptocurrency, but the blockchain, the transparency, the immutability, and the trust that it restores. It solves the problem of centralized control over authentic human creative value. Crypto was born in 2008. Not coincidentally, 2008, if you remember, was when the global financial system collapsed, when banks gambled with people's money. They lost and they got bailed out by governments. Who does that for us? When millions lost their homes, their savings, their futures, when it became undeniable that the centralized system wasn't serving people, it was extracting their creativity from them. And when it failed, they paid the price, just like I did. Bitcoin was created as a response, a way to move peer to peer cash without intermediaries, without banks, without governments, without asking per permission. And not because the creators hated banks. I don't hate banks, but because centralized control had proven itself untrustworthy. So as crypto solves more than 2008, it solves pain points that have existed as long as centralized money systems have. The pain of invisible fees. You can see every transaction on a blockchain, every fee, every movement. Nothing is hidden. The pain of gatekeepers. No one can freeze your wallet without your keys. No institution decides if you're allowed to participate. The pain of borders. You can send value to anyone, anywhere, instantly. No Western Union taking 10%. No banks holding transfers for days. The pain of inflation. Some cryptocurrencies have fixed supplies. The government can't print more and devalue what you've stored. The pain of exhaustion and exclusion. Anyone with internet can participate. No credit check, no bank account required, no permission. These aren't theoretical pain points. I've lived them, I've studied them, and I've built systems that cause them. And crypto, imperfect, chaotic, evolving, volatile crypto, is the first technology that actually addresses them at the infrastructure level, not by making extraction more efficient, but by making extraction optional, by giving us a business and owners of that business a choice in how we exchange our value, and most of all, an incentive to participate in the value creation process as assets multiply. That's why I'm all in. So here's what blockchain and Web3 helped me finally see. What I'd been circling for years but couldn't quite name. We are the source and the store of value. We are the assets, not our jobs, not our titles, not our bank accounts or credit scores or performance reviews. Us, our wisdom, our creativity, our labor, our presence, our authentic gifts. The centralized system taught us the opposite. It taught us your value comes from institutions that employ you, that validate you, that credit you, and rate you. Your worth is measured by what you produce for them, not and how efficiently you disappear into their systems. They store your value in our banks, move your money through our rails, pay our fees for the privilege of accessing what was always yours. That's the nothing that makes humans, the manufacturers of money, invisible and makes humans lazy. We forget that we're the ones exchanging value with one another, using the systems to move money around, adopting technology that they designed for us. But up until now, we've all just been numbers on a ledger, producing products that turn profit. But crypto reveals the truth. You are the miner of your own value. You stake your claim. You choose where to store that value and on what project. And you can now choose where to store your assets and value. It doesn't have to be with a bank, with human owners that can freeze your account or deny permission to you to move your own money around because they don't understand or trust you. It can be in a wallet that you control. And you can move value yourself, peer to peer. No intermediaries required. You can create value yourself and trade it directly with others who see it, who want it, who value it. You are the validator, not waiting for institutions to credit you. You verify, you choose, you decide. This isn't just about cryptocurrency. This is about remembering who we've always been, sovereign creators, merchants of our own authentic selves, sources and stores of value, beings in charge of who we trust and who we do not. The centralized system needed us to forget this, because if we remembered, we wouldn't need them. Blockchain and Web3 and cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, are the technical infrastructure that makes remembering possible, that helps us store immutable value transparently. And it may not be the answer for everyone, but it's an answer, it's an option. And it's a set of protocols where sovereignty isn't theoretical, it's operational, and it's happening now. And for people who are ready to remember who they are, it's oxygen. To me, commerce is an energetic exchange, not just metaphorically, actually. I believe that money is just energy taking form. First is grain, remember, then cloth, then metal coins, then paper, and now in digital bits. And as we shift to digital forms of money, crypto, blockchain, decentralized finance, we're seeing something interesting, an increase in both exploitation and empowerment. Trust has taken center stage once again because digital money can strip away human connection even more than digital money did. We've already seen that. Algorithms and bots, transactions without faces, or digital money can restore transparency, visibility, sovereignty, peer to peer exchange where you see the energy moving. You choose the terms and you control the flow. Same technology, two completely different intentions. It's about time. That's why I'm an ambassador for Women in Blockchain Talks, a 5-year organization helping women understand blockchain, AI, and Web3 technology. It's why I collaborate with communities like the Bitcoin Bay Foundation. It's why I teach classes about economic empowerment in my community, because these are the future of our commerce and money systems. And women like me and the men who support us, they need to be at the table, building them, not just using them, building. Because if we're not, history is going to repeat itself. The tools will be used for extraction, not communion, and will be invisible once again. So here's what nearly dying taught me. Trauma points to resilience, not as platitude, as evidence. I survived COVID pneumonia by surviving my own fear first, by getting my emotions in check, by choosing to breathe when my body wanted to give up, by roaring when I had no voice left. That's resilience. I had to unlock my own essence so that I could trade my true source and store of value. My mother survived 22 years of invisible labor before her heart gave out. 22 years of showing up, holding it together, loving us when everything she had. That's resilience too. And every person who's been extracted from financially, emotionally, systemically, and is still here, still trying, still hoping that there's something better, that's resilience too. And resilience isn't just survival. Resilience is stored wisdom. It's proof that you know the cost, proof you know what's worth protecting, proof that you can tell the difference between extraction and exchange because you've lived through extraction and it nearly killed you. That wisdom, that's your merchant credential. Congratulations. That's what the path to unlocking commerce needs. Not polished resumes, not productivity metrics, resilient humans who have roared and survived building businesses that delivered value deep into their communities, from trauma to creator. That's the journey, and I've lived every inch of it. Trauma from my mother's death at 44, my husband's stroke, being fired after 23 years, cast out twice, COVID pneumonia, gray lips, 3 weeks fighting for breath. That fear almost killed me. That extraction, that nearly broke me. The systems that made me invisible, and now creator, naming myself a sovereign creator just like you in a hospital room. I started a consulting firm and dove into entrepreneurialism. It turned into a nonprofit with nothing but wisdom and terror. Taking the crypto contract, everyone told me that I was traitorous. I was crazy. Building bridges both ways and then coming back for those who supported me. Holding my own keys, storing my own value, creating my own legacy. I know what trauma costs. I've paid it in full. I know what resilience requires. I've built it cell by cell. I know what sovereignty feels like. I'm living it daily. I know that trauma points to resilience, always. Your wounds aren't disqualifications, they are your credentials. The systems that broke you, you understand them better than anyone who's ever benefited from them. The extraction you survived, you can spot it instantly now and refuse to participate. The invisibility that you endured, you know exactly how to make things visible for others. Trauma survivors make the best sovereign creators. Why? Because we know what we're building away from, and we'll never go back. That's the voice of broad wisdom that I and so many others bring. Not theoretical, lived, paid for in advance, earned through fire, and now offered freely to anyone ready to walk the same path. I've built traditional payment systems for 30 years, as I said. I speak the language of banks and processors, compliance and risk, and I've lived inside crypto startups. I understand the technology and the philosophy and the possibilities. And I know what it feels like to be made invisible by centralized systems. I've signed myself sovereign creator and meant it. I've been the extractor and the extracted, the insider and the exile, the architect and the destroyed. I can translate between worlds because I've lived in all of them, and so have many of you. So I'm building something, not a solution, an option. It's called Maiden Explorations. It's behind this podcast. The name isn't accidental. Maiden, a first voyage, as the maiden archetype, the untouched, pure intention before the world tells you who you're supposed to be. Explorations is plural because it's not a single destination, it's a practice, a way of seeing the world through new lenses. And we exist for people who are ready. And I pour into an emotional economic empowerment theory through a nonprofit with intentions to inspire a whole new world of restorative commerce. So, if you're not ready to have all the answers, but you are ready to ask different questions, if you're ready to challenge status quo, elevate the vulnerable communities, and amplify voices as market advisors, ready to unlock commerce, true commerce, the way it was intended to be, I have some questions for you. When was the last time you felt truly valued in a business exchange? What's the difference between being paid and being valued? What if you chased commerce instead of money? What would change for you? Are you ready to explore the world around you and the world within from a perspective that the matrix doesn't validate? What does it mean to explore through new lenses? It means looking at commerce and seeing communion. It means looking at your trauma and seeing resilience. It means looking at the small life that you've built and seeing enough. Seeing everything. It means looking at yourself, the authentic, vulnerable version, and saying with conviction, I am the asset. Maiden Explorations creates options for this shift. That's why this podcast is here. Options to store value with sovereignty, where you control your assets, your wisdom, and your legacy. Options to trade with transparency, where the terms are visible and the exchange is consensual. Options to build community at human scale, where reputation matters and faces are seen. And finally, options to explore your authentic gifts and learn how to offer them without disappearing yourself. So, you've heard a lot today, and that's what makes this lighthouse real. I'm not standing on shore telling you about the sea. I'm in the water with you, constantly moving, pulling my strength from Source, God, the universe. I can't serve you if my cup isn't full. I may know the way back to shore. Only you can determine, though, if you feel safe enough to join me. The podcast. We are the voices, the lighthouses, but it's part of a larger ecosystem. All of my breadcrumbs lead to one thing: empowerment and choice. All of this is the bridge for those who dare to follow. So, I'm investing in it intentionally, building legacy, creating assets, and storing value. So my family inherits sovereignty, not dependency. I'm healing generational trauma. So my children and grandchild don't carry the weight that I carried. I'm creating emotional harmony so that the cycles of extraction, performance, and invisibility end with me. And being a positive ripple of light so every person can teach, can guide, can mentor, and shepherd if they choose to create their own ripples. So, this podcast is a part of that legacy, a marketplace of voices, a center of trust, a lighthouse for people swimming in the dark. Every episode, someone tells you what they learned in the depths, what they're building on shore, or how they became sovereign. And you hear, this is possible. This is real. And you are valuable enough to choose it. That's the ripple. That's the legacy. Not just assets in crypto, but wisdom in humans. So we are the source and store of value. Us plebs, commoners, who are the power source for the world as we know it. Today, I showed you why it matters and why I built this marketplace of voices. And this may not be for everyone. It's for people who are ready, people who have something that they're ready to explore in the world or in themselves through new lenses. So, I encourage you to begin your own journey back to yourself. This roadmap isn't mine to give you, it's yours to discover. I'm just the lighthouse cutting through the noise, showing you that there's solid ground, that there are others swimming too, and some of us have made it back to shore. So, thanks again for tuning in. I'm Connie Davis. This is the episode of Unlocking Commerce and Business, and I'll see you next time. Don't be afraid to leave a comment, reach out, connect. That's why I exist. See you next time.